Okay. Looks like I don't get a chair.
You have nice.
No. No, seriously, no. Stay there, please. Okay, so firstly, I wanted to start with hopefully a reasonably general question and ask each of our research leads perhaps in turn if they will provide a response to it. So what I'm wondering is the key outcomes of your research. What is that likely to be, and how will those outcomes assist industry and other stakeholders to manage PSHB and or reduce the risk? So Treena, I might start with you first.
I'll talk about the main bit about the...
Sorry. Yeah, I should have given you the... And so, just flick it up.
Does
it say it's working?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, great. So I'll just talk about one bit, which is about understanding the susceptibility of a whole range of different potential crop trees. So if we work on all the agricultural tree species and get a really good idea of how susceptible they are to the pathogen, that's going to provide a lot of certainty to industry to know how worried they need to be and where they need to be looking. And then also in some of the work that we're going to try to do with natural ecosystems, we're going to try really hard to get some solutions for managing complex natural ecosystems, because I've got a feeling that the pathway out of Perth might be along our waterways, and it's a bit of a concern for everyone involved.
Sounds
I might pass it to Paul because they sort of overlap.
Yep, that'd be great. If you could maybe just speak, that's better.
Okay, so the first thing is detecting hosts, species detection. So obviously some local governments have a reasonable idea where the tree species are, they have reasonable tree orders, many don't. So, it will be a matter of us trying to help them to develop those tree orders remotely, as we've done in Canberra and other councils. So then if we can do that and identify the host species, then we know where to look first. That's the obvious one. Once we've found them and we delineate tree crowns, it's then about early warning. So again, as we've done elsewhere, it's about doing it on a large scale across Perth, probably in the areas where it's spreading, the high-risk areas. We can then get annual change imagery, and then we can see precisely whether trees are in declining condition. And if they are, go there first and look at those trees, what's causing it. And it may not always be polyphagous, there's going to be development, impacts, and all sorts of factors, but that's where it really comes into its own. So there'll be a large part of the research as well.
Great. Over to you, Ben.
I think I just talked about the outcomes.
Yeah, you feel like you've covered that? Maybe.
I would put a question out to everyone here though to think about is what are those question marks? What are the things that you need to know that you think might be able to be drawn from the data? If you can think of questions that you have, please let us know, because we have 2.5, 3 years now to work towards getting those answers for you. So as managers on the ground, please let us know what it is that you are struggling to make decisions on and that you would like to know. We will do our darndest to find those things out for you.
Thanks, Ben. And over to you, Theo.
So as I said in the talk, as Gavin and Tim did too, we're hoping to have some very practical new methods that can be used in industry, amenity trees, and again, as Ben said, what are the questions that local government, that industry have that we can tackle? Please come and talk to us.
Great, thank you. And for Vincent, I'd just like to ask you, what role is DPIRD likely to have in these research projects going forward?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So that's been probably a little bit covered already by Ben in terms of data sharing. So we've collected obviously an awful lot of data since August 2021. I mentioned we inspected more than 2.9 million trees, so you can imagine the amount of data set we've got. And also obviously providing some support in terms of scientific information that we have collected since 2021. Also the policy work that we've been doing in terms of facilitating research through our policies and permits and the like, and obviously providing a regular update as to what's going to happen for the next 18 months, obviously. And I think the plan is that we will meet every month to basically make sure that we all share information.
Terrific, thank you. So I know we've got lots of local government people and industry in the room as well. So I just wanted to ask the question, and I'm not quite sure who I'll go with first, whoever looks most enthusiastic. How can local governments and or industry support your research project, and what do you need from them? So there's a couple of questions around that have been posed. Who would like to answer that one? Treena?
I mean, we're going to be conducting pathogenicity trials. So in the first instance, we'll probably be doing that in excise material, which is a scenario which favours the pathogen. So if we don't get a good response in an excise scenario, it's probably very unlikely to be a very good host. So we're going to be requiring access to materials. And then hopefully with the species that turn out to be good hosts for the pathogen, we're going to have to do more trials on that. We're going to need reasonable size trees, but we won't be able to do them down in Manjimup or somewhere like that. So we're going to need access to trees which have wood, so at least 2 to 3 years old, to be able to conduct experiments on living trees. So that's going to be the biggest thing we're going to be asking for is for plants. Personally, that's the biggest thing we're going to be asking for.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Paul?
Yeah,
Or Ben?
great. So the obvious one is tree order data. So that we'll use that tree order data to train models to identify other species in our imagery. Outside of this project, we've already got a lot of local government clients. We've brought a lot of those into this project as well. So we have a lot of imagery we've acquired, for the last 10 years almost, that we're bringing into this project that we can analyse already. But if we don't work with you already and we haven't got a relationship, then please come and see us, because I suppose what we're trying to do here is get over the areas and acquire data in addition to what we have already, so we can get coverage across most of Perth. So that's the ideal outcome here, particularly in those regions where polybagus is spreading out towards the extremities.
Once again, I think I already might have answered that question by saying, please tell us if you have questions that we might go over to. That's the thing.
And Theo, I might just go to you if you've got any assistance you'd like from industry.
We're the same as Treena. We will be running experiments. So from industry, woody trees, we're going to set up experiments at the Shandon Park Field Station. So avocados, we'd love to put with you. Talking with the palm industry and the mango industry. We're interested in how these different sorts of insecticides and fungicides move through the trees. So they're not going to all move the same way. Some will move quickly, some won't. Some will be localised, some will be generalised. How well will they protect the tree in a preventative way, in a remedial, so we can do we can infect trees, see how they respond. And also for Tim's work, obviously working with LGAs to be able to survey people. So there are parts of Perth which have been very heavily hit, like Netherlands. There are parts of Perth which haven't yet got any PSHB detections. How do people, what do they know in these different parts of Perth? It'd be great for Tim's team to be able to work with the LGAs across Perth.
And I can just add to that, there's a number of local governments. CBACO is a great example where they are doing a lot of work and collecting a lot of data through their different ways of trying to see if they can get responses to polyphagous. So it's going to be great to be able to feed some of that through to the various streams of research as well.
Terrific. Thanks, Nicole. Okay, we're ready to move on to the next question. We have got a few interesting ones here. So in terms of if a commercially developed treatment for PSHB receives APVMA approval in the near future, how might that interact with, or will it change any of the research anyone is likely to do? Or how might it change anything, I guess? Theo?
So the APVMA needs around 15 trees to have had experimental work done on it and show a positive response. Different timescales for different types of treatments. So to get APVMA approval, that's not a very large experiment. So it'd be nice to have follow-up quickly and see how widely applicable it is, because it might only be done in 15 trees for London plane trees or something like that. And we know that not all trees are going to be responding the same way. So it'd be great, fantastic, but probably need more work, particularly for horticulture, if it's been shown in an amenity species rather than a horticultural species.
Would you like to, do you have any comments on that one, Vincent? From a government perspective, I guess.
What was the question?
So just about whether if there is actually an APVMA approved chemical treatment that comes on the market, will that change anything for you?
Well, obviously, the early grade is to find a chemical, either fungicide or an insecticide that will, make sure that every single beetle within the tree is destroyed, or protecting the tree from any infestation. That would be the early grade, and we're not the only one. WA is not the only jurisdiction having to respond to PSHB, and we can't exclude that some research that's been also undertaken overseas might find a treatment or a solution, and obviously that's something that we will be welcoming, and I think that's the only way, to be honest.
Great, thank you. Okay, so in terms of other questions that are here, there is a question around how could people who are interested in, so potential students, how might they be able to get involved? Who wants to answer this one? Is this a Treena or a Ben question, maybe?
We love potential students. We all love potential students. Yeah, that's the answer. Just get in touch and we'll fight over you. Probably, most likely in reality.
Terrific. Anyone else want to answer that one? I guess you're all just on the same page there, aren't you? Okay. Just going through these here now. I think we might answer just one or two key ones, unless anyone's got any burning questions from the floor. There's just another couple here. So in terms of, okay, so this one, I think this is one for you, Vincent. There's a question about the movement of infested materials, or the movement of potential carrier, I guess, of PSHB, and the question is just what is actually being done to prevent the movement of those potential carriers?
Sure. So there's been a lot of education. We've spent obviously a lot of time, and to be honest, this is the first response where we are on a social license Australia-wide. So such a complicated situation where we've removed close to 5,000 trees and everything. And at the start of the response, I thought that we would be losing social license. At some stage, we're 4 years down the track, and we haven't had any single protest. We haven't had any people chaining themselves to trees and things like that, where we've been removing trees or doing some pruning. And whereas a few hundred meters in some occasion, people were protesting because some trees were being removed for development purposes. So I think that really highlights all the hard work that the communication team within the response has been undertaken. Obviously, it didn't happen overnight, and on top of the money that is coming from the national response process, the WA government has also invested, I think, $1 million especially for communication purposes. And I think that really highlights, when we all work together, and actually the other jurisdictions are really interested in finding out, because, there's the example of red imported fire ant in Queensland and the like, where the situation is not as rosy as here in terms of social license. And they really want to basically learn, and there's some researchers that are looking at what we've done here in WA to basically being able to maintain that social research. In terms of quarantine, so the quarantine area remains in place. We've got a really good interactive online map when you go on the PSHB web page of the department, where you type your address. It's a bit like a Google map. You type your residential address. It will show you exactly where you are within Australia. And therefore, if you are within the quarantine area, if you are within Zone A or Zone B, and what measure apply to you, so that you know exactly, what not to do or what to do in terms of making sure that we ensure that PSHB stays where it's fine as long as possible.
Thanks, Vincent. And I think everyone's seen the big effort that's gone into the communications. We've had sort of big presentations up in Yagan Square. We've certainly had a lot of interest from our politicians as well. So great to have that response. So this is an interesting one. The question is a shift back to eradication possible if an effective treatment's identified? So that's an interesting one. I don't know. Do you want to start, Vincent, and then we can go to Ben?
So obviously, yeah, I don't know if Ben might be more better placed, and you probably haven't run the model. Well, you're probably still early in the journey. But, the big question mark is how many trees are, infested that we don't know about. So at the moment, we know, we saw in the presentation that I gave, the current picture, that's what we know as of, nowadays. We can't exclude that we might be able to, especially if there's a chemical that is found to be, effective at curing infested tree. It's a big question mark, but I don't think we can exclude either option.
Thanks. Anything to add, Ben?
I would say in principle, it could go back to that, but it would require tools that are a lot better than are currently available. So I think we'll definitely come up. I think this team will come up with tools that are much better than currently exist. I have a lot of confidence in that. Whether those tools are good enough to bring us back to an eradication state, that's a different question. They may be good enough to help us with containment, however. For example, if our detection gets good enough and our capacity to eradicate small populations gets good enough, then we do actually have the tools to actually say, no, it doesn't leave the state. So I would go with containment first, maybe as an aspiration, and then
Local eradication, perhaps, infestation somewhere.
Yeah, great, terrific. Okay, I think we've pretty much reached the end of our time here. If there is one very burning question, I think, Andy, you may have one, we can go to you and then we'll finish up.
I've just got one for Vincent. The top 10 most vulnerable susceptible trees are all non-native trees. Is there any push to encourage people to replace trees with native trees rather than the very susceptible non-natives?
Yes, so on our webpage that is dedicated to PSHB, you can find all the known hosts in WA where PSHB has been found, and the list is quite humbling, I guess, or scary. And there is also this host is very susceptible, less susceptible. So you can see basically what not to plant. The department, unfortunately, cannot advise, because everybody will be in a different situation. If you are worried about Phytophthora, obviously, there's a lot of factors that you need to take into consideration before selecting what tree you want to plant on your property or on the street tree or in a park. But we definitely have the list of trees not to plant if you want to make sure that you don't get PSHB on your property.
Maybe I can add to that. Through the grant programs that we've been administering, we actually haven't been funding reproductive host trees for governments, but I think that's just a start. I really do think we need to be proactive educating the community about implementing these species.
No, really good point. Thanks for that, Andy. That is, and you did raise that in your presentation as well, Nicole, about that kind of move to change the canopy. Yes.
Yeah, that's something. So that's something that we obviously communicated to the local government quite early on as the list was progressing. But also, I think something that's quite important is that the WA government is also doing the tree recovery program, where 3 trees will be available for 1 tree that's been destroyed on your land. And so that's something that is not run by DPER, it's run by another department, but they're also aware that the species that will be available for replanting, that won't be species that are susceptible to PSHB. That's the kind of information we've been
Terrific.
passing over to WAARC.
Yeah, and we've actually got a couple of people from WAARC as part of that tree planting. Yeah, where's the hands? Down the back there, great, thank you. So just a very huge thank you to the people on the panel. Hopefully you've enjoyed the discussion today. And yeah, look, I think every time I hear about these projects, I'm just, sort of more in awe of the kind of talented people that we have. Just again, a huge thanks to Deeper, just been a fantastic collaborator in this process. Michelle, Monique, you guys have just been just a huge support. So really thank you very much for that.